Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network, and this is the debut of the Walk of Shame. I think I'm going to do this post-fight show regularly, but obviously because I was covering UFC 235 live, very difficult to do this while sitting in the press conference, asking questions, and trying to bang out some post-fight writing. But here we are, the morning after, with a little time to digest some of what we saw at UFC 235, and I think overall, the thing about this card is, like, I'm not sure what to think about it. Is it strange? Is it good? Was it bad? It had a little bit of everything. It was almost like a sampler platter of what MMA could offer. So let's go ahead and get started. Obviously, the main event was Jon Jones versus Anthony Smith. Jon Jones dominated, like thoroughly dominated, and that wasn't much of a surprise. I think the surprise comes in that Smith actually made it to the final bell. It seemed very clear to me, it seemed clear to a lot of the other media members that I was sitting nearby cage side, that Jones just could have done anything he wanted, like anything he wanted. He just chose not to, from my estimation. I mean, we saw him lock in several chokes for a second, like he kind of flirted with the darts here and there. He flirted with the guillotine at one point. You saw him kind of framing while Smith was on the ground and looked like he was about to do some serious damage to him, and he would do it, and then he'd kind of stop. Afterward, Jones said that he was feeling kind of winded, and I will say that he did look a little more tired than normal. He definitely took some serious deep breaths at certain points in the fight. Excuse me. However, I'm not sure if that's really the case, if that was a function of Jones being tired or Anthony Smith being underestimated, or if it was just Jones kind of playing with his food. And I'm leaning toward Jones playing with his food. I mean, all credit due to Anthony Smith for hanging in there, for enduring pretty much everything that was given to him, including an illegal knee, which we'll get to in a second. But from the jump of that fight, I think couldn't have been no more than a minute or so into that first round, that spinning back kick that he landed on Smith, landed right on the body. I mean, that was severe. That was really, really bad. So that actually took place right in front of the press row, right in front of us. And to hear the combination of a thud with a crack with that shot, it's like man, that gave me pain to my liver. To hear that, like, that hurt. That had to have hurt. And I wonder how much that strike in particular took out of him. Going into this fight, we all knew that the best way for Smith to have a shot is just kind of go for broke. And what a fitting way for that to be. For Anthony Smith was a journeyman that we would have otherwise just not paid any attention to. I mean, he originally in the UFC, he was one and done. He was on I think it was a random Brazil card, and found himself getting finished early on, and he was cut, and that was it. And then he went to Bellator, I think he was in Strikeforce Challengers at some point. Also, like, he's been around a lot, and to like middling success. So for him to come to the UFC, change weight classes, which, by the way, he's an enormous guy, so the fact that he made 185 just blows my mind. But he was able to, change weight classes and find new life, and go ahead and get some very impressive stoppages. Granted, 2 of those stoppages were against guys who are definitely past their primes, and one of them being Rashad Evans, who is retired now. But still, finish is a finish in such a thin division. Hey, you take what you can get. You can't take that opportunity away from Smith, because he did earn it. He definitely earned it. And when he got in there, it was kind of like, all right, you just got to go for broke. And that, I think, fits into this sort of Rocky theme that we all had in mind for him, where, you are a guy who's on the lower tier, and now all of a sudden you have this huge opportunity to go from that to, I think he started his career like 4-6 or something in that range. To start your career like that, and then next thing you know, you are headlining a pay-per-view in Vegas. that is a very, very, very big deal. And that's one of those things where you almost want to root for him. And it was such a weird night that there was this strange energy, like maybe this is the night it happens, because everything else seemed to be very bizarre. And we definitely have a lot to talk about on that front. But and then let's talk about that illegal knee as well. When that knee landed, I mean, it was kind of ironic how it happened. So first, the soccer kick, which from where I was sitting, it looked like Jones was aiming for high chest to his head, possibly. I mean, Jones isn't exactly the most rule-abiding fighter in the cage, so it wouldn't shock me if he were to really intentionally go for a soccer kick just for shits and giggles. That honestly wouldn't shock me a whole lot. But it looked like, and I have to look at this replay for obvious reasons. I wasn't looking at the broadcast, but it looked like he covered up and the kick landed across his forearms. That's what it looked like to me. But as I was tweeting about that, and I'm responding to someone asking me something about the kick, or responding to some tweet about the kick, or whatever the case may be, I'm saying, like, yeah, I think that was legal, because even if he intended to hit the guy in the head, it didn't look like it landed there, so it's all good. And then right when I hit send, then the knee to the head takes place, and that was just so blatant. And I think we definitely should give some credit to Anthony Smith for deciding to fight through it. Now, of course, we've got a ton of keyboard warriors out there who are saying that, if that would have been a weak way to go out, it would have been this, it would have been that. And, Dana White was saying that would have been a weasel move. And to an extent, that is true. But you got to think about what else is on the line. It isn't just about the win and loss. It's about the money. If you are a champion, you get paid more. So say Smith were to fall all out and, I can't continue, and I'm done, and they just call it TQ, obviously the DQ loss for Jones. Anthony Smith gets the belt. Yeah, that isn't exactly the cleanest way to become champion. That's not the way you want to earn your belt. I mean, we still hear jokes about Vitor Belfort becoming light heavyweight champion because of the seam of his glove cutting above Randy Couture's eye. Like, we still hear about that and kind of roll our eyes when Vitor Belfort is described as a former UFC champion. But even if that's the case, they would book a rematch. And when that rematch is booked, Anthony Smith would get champion pay. So you've got to think, like, man, that leaves a lot of money on the table for Anthony Smith. So he sacrificed more than just the fight, just having the belt, just to say that he won. Like, he sacrificed a huge payday because that was definitely something that would have netted him a lot of money had he done with what most people would have done. And all you keyboard warriors out there, you would have done the same thing. So let's not pretend that we're all behind these screens being the strongest and bravest people out there, because no, those are the ones in the cage. All right. So everybody knock that shit off. All right. Got a couple questions actually. All right. So from the homie Yojimbo, he asked, was Anthony Smith fighting scared last night? Looked like he got in the cage and went, oh no, I'm fighting Jon Jones. I think that is definitely a fair statement. That was kind of the sense that we got. Like, he definitely didn't fight the way he the way he should have on paper. The way that the game plan probably would have worked out the best for him. And you can put that to several different reasons, but it's much easier said than done to get in Jon Jones's face and bring a fight to him. Much easier said than done. Interestingly enough, I think in the last round, like when the last round started, there was a brief moment where Smith did fight like he came forward. He tried to land some bombs. I think he connected with a couple shots, but nothing of consequence really landed. He really, really, really opened up just for that moment. And I think that was a function of, and I asked him this at the post-fight presser, and he was kind of saying he didn't really know. He hadn't really thought about it a whole lot, but I think that was a function of knowing that you are so far down on scorecards, even with a 2-point deduction in his favor. Like, he was so far behind on the scorecards, and he was getting so thoroughly dominated at that point. It's like, why not? Like, we talk about him having nothing to lose. At that moment, he really had absolutely nothing to lose. Just going for broke would have been a wise thing to do on his part, but going at Jon Jones, man, yeah, good luck with that. I mean, as far as what's next for him, Thiago Santos looks like the fight they want to make next. Why not? Santos has earned his shot too. Same way Anthony Smith. Now, of course, we favor Jon Jones to thoroughly handle Thiago Santos, but if these guys earn their spot, just give it to them. You know, we can't simultaneously bitch and moan about super fights, about these divisions being held up, and then look down upon a fight where a number one contender organically arises and he fights the champion. That's a double standard that really makes no sense. So let's just be happy with that. And if any of these super fight opportunities come along, of course, Cormier, heavyweight, and Brock Lesnar are the ones that everybody wants to talk about. If they come around, so be it. If not, I'm perfectly fine with seeing Jon Jones just fight guys who have earned their spot. And I think there is actually the beginning of some line of reasonable contenders for him. So should be some exciting stuff in the future. Let's see. We've got, so we'll talk about the co-main event, Tyron Woodley and Kamaru Usman. Woodley no longer the UFC welterweight champion. Kamaru Usman with utter domination to win the belt. Definitely not what I expected. I really thought that that Tyron Woodley would be able to avoid the takedown as he typically does. I thought his being the overall better striker would come into play, but it just doesn't look like we gave Usman enough credit, or was Woodley like just not quite there? I mean, it was a strange night, and there was some strange energy in the building. Maybe some of that rubbed off on Woodley, possibly. But let's not take anything away from what Kamaru Usman did. That was, off the top of my head, I have to put that among the most dominant performances by a title challenger to win the belt. The only other one that really comes to mind to where I think like, okay, this one was probably better, was TJ Dillashaw versus Renan Morel in the first fight. And I put that above it because Dillashaw got the finish in the last round, and that was just kind of the ultimate demoralizing of a man who was so dominant. Woodley at least made it to the final bell, but I mean, multiple 10-8 rounds. I scored 2 10-8 rounds against him. I saw some media members scoring 3 10-8 rounds, and that sounds reasonable. I mean, that scorecard was so lopsided. And then at the end of the fourth round, I mean, it looked like Usman was just a split second away from finishing it. It looked just like the Nate Marquardt fight when, excuse me, when he, was leaned up against the fence. Marquardt is just unloading combinations and tagging him up and dropped him. And it looked just like that until Usman looked like he might have just kind of punched himself out temporarily. And he shot in for the takedown, and and they were able to stall against the fence until the final of the bell rung for that round. So, man, Usman. We'll talk about Woodley in a second, but Usman, it's like, wow. Usman winning is a big deal. I mean, not only did he dethrone a guy who who definitely has a he also puts his home country of Nigeria on the map. And, it's this wave of African guys who are really, really impressing people in the UFC, with Israel Adesanya challenging for the interim middleweight belt in a couple weeks or so. And then Francis Ngannou just having that crazy finish of Cain Velasquez a few weeks ago. There really is a wave of African fighters coming through, and I think that's such an untapped region. Like a lot of highly athletic guys who can just thoroughly run through a lot of the competition. It could be coming out of there. I mean, as we know, places that tend to have a certain level of poverty breed really tough fighters. I mean, we see this with the like Dagestani fighters, and we see this in Brazil. We see this. I mean, fight sports typically have been for the poor people, for like the lower class, and I really want to see what these countries have to offer the UFC, mixed martial arts in general. It's definitely an untapped region, and Kamaru Usman is very adamant about leading that charge, and all power to him. That's a great cause to stick up for. And I don't know much about the broadcasting deals in Africa. Dana White alluded to that and saying how big their numbers are. If their numbers are that big, and you've got a champion hailing from the continent, you've got a potential middleweight champion hailing from that continent, you got a potential heavyweight champion hailing from that continent. Let's see if they try to reach into that market and really maximize its potential, because that's a huge sport. That's the largest, I think the second largest continent on Earth. There's got to be some good fighters there. There's got to be. So I'm looking forward to that. So we got a question about Usman from the homie Matt Hunter. He says, with Usman becoming champion with two natural rivals, is he in a better position to become a star than Woodley when he was champion? Yeah, I think so. But also, Woodley's title reign just kind of had this air of strange around it because of the style matchups. But Woodley fought a lot of specialists, fighting Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, fighting Damian Maia, fighting Darren Till. He fought several one-trick ponies that forced certain game plans and people. I mean, of course, the Darren Till fight ended in exciting fashion, but people really, I don't think, gave him the credit that he deserved for the tasks that he accomplished, because they just didn't find it aesthetically pleasing, and of course that's their decision. But Kamaru Usman with a continent behind him, and not just the country of Nigeria, with potentially a continent behind him, there's potential there. Colby Covington, playing rival to both of them, very smart in what he was doing there. He also is a guy that was a Woodley rival, that we'd be talking about Woodley in a different light had Covington stepped into that spot last night. Sorry, my voice is all jacked up. Needless to say, a lot of talking over loud noises last night. But yeah, man, I definitely see the potential in Usman to become a star. I think everybody wants to see Colby Covington get beat up, especially after some of his antics over the fight week. Ben Askren also kind of throwing his name in there. And we'll get to Ben Askren, but it looks like there's other business for him to tend to. So yeah, I'm really trying to figure out how we're going to frame Woodley's reign, and of course we need a little distance from it. We need to see what's next for him. I mean, and we got a question here too about about what's next for Woodley. He's 36 or 37 years old. Do we see him getting another title shot? And with his relationship with the UFC and a very clear desire to get him up out of there, I don't think we see him back in a title fight. I mean, he's going to have to move heaven and earth to do it. He's going to have to go in there and smoke somebody really quick. And then he's got to go smoke somebody else. And he's got to make it undeniable. I mean, let's remember how after John Fitch, got beat up on by George St. Pierre, he tried his best to earn that shot. And he went on a ridiculous win streak in the process. But, hey, they just didn't want him there. They just simply didn't. And he never got a rematch that he definitely deserved. So I really think we could see Woodley in that position. And at his age, how much longer does he want to fight? And Dana White is talking about how much money he's made. And he may not want to. Woodley's got plenty of other things going on. And maybe that played a factor in last night. Could have been a factor. Wouldn't shock me at all. But when you've got, you're doing stuff with TMZ, you're doing movies, you got a rap career. I mean, I think he had his songs from his upcoming album to walk him out to the cage. Like, he's got a lot going on, and I'm sure he can make money at, most, if not all of these endeavors. At, you pushing 40, do you want to get hit in the face for a living? When you can make your money by not getting hit in the face? You got some questions to ask there. I don't by any means think Woodley is done as a fighter. That's ridiculous. That's totally ridiculous. And it really could have just been an off night for him. And maybe if the fight happened tonight or it happened next week or whatever, we would have seen the exact opposite happen. We'll never know that, of course. But yeah, Woodley, I'd be very surprised to see Woodley get another opportunity at the welterweight title. Yeah, man, it just sucks because I think it's been very clear that the UFC just wanted him out of there. They didn't want him with that belt around his waist. Let's backtrack on how his welterweight reign began. Knocking out Robbie Lawler, who apparently had Conor McGregor defeated Nate Diaz at UFC 196. The rumors were that Conor was going to challenge for the welterweight title, and everybody just assumed it was going to be Robbie Lawler, and they discounted Tyron Woodley's chances against him while he waited for his shot. Then he gets the belt, and they throw Wonderboy Thompson at him, and who got much more promotion, seemed to be heavily favored in the fan base and some of the media as well. Like, that was the narrative that was being pushed, was Wonderboy Thompson being this all-American kid to win the belt, and how exciting his style is and everything. That doesn't go as planned. The Damian Maia fight, Damian Maia just earned a shot by choking out everyone else. But then Darren Till was very, very, very obvious that they wanted Darren Till to have that belt. They wanted to build a star in Darren Till, and Woodley just said no. So this is Kamaru Usman did what looks like Dana White wanted Darren Till and Wonderboy to do before, and that's just take that belt away from Woodley. And we look at that it's that meme now of Dana White's face as he has to put the belt on Tyron after defeating Darren Till, and I think that sums it up. That sums up what the UFC felt toward Tyron Woodley as champion. All right, so let's move on from there. Yeah, we got to talk about the Robbie Lawler and Ben Askren fight. Wow. First off, let me just say that I am not mad at Herb Dean for that stoppage at all. In real time, from where I was sitting, and a lot of other guys who know the sport and cover the sport and are much more experienced covering the sport than I am, just about all of us were like, yeah, he looked like he was out. You know, to see a guy holding on to his opponent's head, and then that hand is moved and it just drops. That looked like he was out. And in hindsight, when you look at the replay, you see a thumbs up and all that. Yeah, in hindsight, you can say that, and you can say like, "Oh, his arm didn't go that limp." Well, when you're looking at it in real time, it looked like it did. So I think it's just an unfortunate incident that finished. It was an unfortunate incident, but can you be mad at the referee for keeping the fighter safe when it looked like something was really going wrong? You know, we would have been killing him. We would have been killing Herb Dean had that fight still been going on and Askren actually choked Robbie Lawler out. You know, we aren't that far removed from when Steve Mazzagatti let Josh Berkman damn near kill John Fitch in World Series of Fighting. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, do you want to see another incident like that? I don't. I mean, I definitely think you can let it go a little bit longer sometimes, but when the arm goes limp, when it appears to go limp, I think that sums it up. I think that's where we can just say, shit happens. It's unfortunate, but shit happens. But the way that fight started off, I mean, I have more questions than answers, you know, after seeing Ben Askren debut. Robbie Lawler, we knew from jump, was a very, very, very difficult style matchup. He's a guy who's not the easiest to take down. And if you can't get him down, then God rest your soul if you have no stand-up. Because Robbie Lawler he's not going to outpoint you. He is going to try his best to remove your head from the top of your neck. And he's so good at doing that. And we've seen him do it a million times over. So for Askren to get stuffed on that shot, then endure quite the beating, like quite the beating, get dumped on his head, and then just got elbowed and pounded out to oblivion. His face is bloodied up. But Askren still was able to employ his game plan. How nuts is that? He still, after being dropped on his head, after being elbowed and busted up and cut, at a point where, honestly, would you have been mad if Herb Dean stopped it there? I wouldn't have been. But it looks like Askren did just enough to keep himself in the fight. And you know what? He did do exactly what he said he was going to do. He got a hold of Robbie Lawler and eventually got him down, you know, and started smothering him. You know, and even if that choke didn't put him out, he still was able to lock a choke up on him. That's pretty nuts. Like, and Ben Askren, man, just the personality that the UFC just simply did not deserve, man. They don't deserve the personality that guy puts in. He was having so much fun with it to then immediately just laugh about it and say Dana, is that the best you got? And you know, and his antics at the post-fight presser, and he sat among the media and then started talking to Bob Bennett from the chairman of the Nevada Athletic Commission. You know, while he's at the podium, like Ben Askren is a character, and he's been a character all fight week. Like he has been having the time of his life. He has been a breath of fresh air for everyone around his presence, you know, at these things, because, you know, a lot of the fighters, man, for understandable reasons, like not always, you know, happy to be there. They answering a bunch of questions while they're cutting weight, while they're focused on the guy that's, you know, supposed to fight them and cave their head in, and they're sitting across from them and got to be in the same room, and it can be uncomfortable at times. But Askren definitely made so much light of the situation that he made a lot of things that otherwise would be pretty mundane, otherwise wouldn't stand out, and from a media member standpoint would just be kind of ho-hum and boring. He made it fun. He made it a lot of fun. Ben Askren is he's a funny guy, just to say the least. So, yeah, man. As far as what's next for him, I know I got asked that Yeah, so this is a question from Robbie, who claims to be of no relation to Robbie Lawler. We'll see. He says, is the next step for Askren Lawler an immediate rematch, or does Askren fight the winner of Till Masvidal? I think he should fight the winner of Till Masvidal, because you almost lost a cash cow right there. I would want to get him in there with a matchup that might not be as dangerous, but still has some relevancy. Still can be exciting. Dana White, I know he told Aaron Bronster of TSN, and I think Aaron tweeted this out, that that he wanted to make the rematch with Askren and Lawler. Askren just shot that idea down instantly. He says, one, he likes Robbie Lawler as a person, and he's a fan of his, and he didn't want to fight him in the first place. Keep in mind, that was like the one guy he didn't call out in that division. And two, I think we saw what can happen if Askren's game plan doesn't go quite right, and Robbie Lawler is probably the absolute worst style matchup. I think there are better uses for Ben Askren than being cannon fodder for Robbie Lawler, should he not be able to get that quick takedown. Yeah, so that's what I feel about that one. Yeah, man, the winner of Till Masvidal makes a lot of sense. I think either one of those guys, he'd have a good shot of defeating, and especially if it's Till. I mean, they've got a feud brewing right now that, something you can sell. So, man, why not? I say throw that on a International Fight Week or something. If if the winner of that fight comes out healthy, and I believe that's next weekend. If Till or Masvidal is a healthy guy, throw him in there with Ben Askren for International Fight Week. That sounds like a good use of everyone involved. As far as what could be next for Robbie Lawler, if not for the Askren rematch, I don't know. Maybe you run it back again with Tyron. Maybe. Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at that necessarily. Maybe for Woodley or Lawler, the winner of Gunnar Nelson and Leon Edwards wouldn't be bad one either. So there's options for either guy outside of each other. I see another question here. Do you think a tiny part of Askren was secretly glad that Woodley lost, so now he has a path to the title? You know what? I really don't know. I thought about that, but one thing is very clear from being around both of them and seeing them interact. Like, Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley are genuinely friends, and they have a history that dates back a very long time. They were wrestling teammates, and they've friends there, and they've practiced together, and they trained together for so long through standout careers in wrestling and then standout careers in mixed martial arts. There is a lot of brotherhood between those two. I mean, they did their media workout together. They did the scrum afterward together. And, Woodley even wrote him a rap. Something. I mean, it's just, you can't make this stuff up. Like the level of friendship that these two have. And Askren even apparently got into it with either commission officials or UFC staff, because he wanted to be able to be on the arena floor to watch Tyron fight Usman, and that was the only part of him that seemed agitated by anything about Fight Week, was that he was denied the opportunity to sit there and watch his friend. So I find it hard to believe that he would really root against him necessarily at this point. I mean, and Askren said to himself, like, he doesn't really care about getting the belt, and he has his heart set on a potential 165-pound division. But hey, maybe we'll see things. Maybe we'll see something that puts a crack in that armor. That's possible, but I don't see it happening. And Tyron immediately was talking about getting the belt back, so I don't think he's ready to just kind of pass the torch and step aside. So there's that. All right. Moving down the card, Tecia Torres and Wally Zhang. Yeah, she's legit. She's official. Like you can't deny her. Tecia Torres has been a mainstay in the division and can give just about any woman in that strawweight division some fits. And Zhang was able to just control position, outstrike her at will almost. I mean, I like her blend of traditional martial arts with what we know to be the more common tactics in MMA. How she was able to use kind of like almost like point fighting, like slight drop back steps into counters and stuff like that. That was really fun to watch. And another big market in China, like that's a huge deal. That big performance institute that the UFC is working on in China is like they're trying to foster talent in that region. And Wally Zhang, it looks like she is going to be at the forefront of that if she keeps up what she's doing, because that was a very good performance. And the thing about this fight had the potential to be very boring. It really had that potential. And I'm glad it turned into what it did, because that was a fun one to watch and very relevant for the future of that division. All right, so let's talk about the pay-per-view opener. Cody Garbrandt and Pedro Munoz. Man, I really had high hopes for Cody Garbrandt in this one. Now, definitely recognizing the threat that Pedro Munoz is, recognizing that he is kind of underappreciated force in the bantamweight division. But man, I just thought when we saw Cody Garbrandt lose 2 times in a row to TJ Dillashaw via those early stoppages, I'm thinking, hey, this is because of the feud between them. You know, that Cody Garbrandt is so devoted to Team Alpha Male, and he's so invested in that camp, and he credits that group for kind of getting him out of a dangerous lifestyle, and he said quite frankly that they saved his life. I thought carrying the weight of the team on his shoulders, I think that's what did it against the Dillashaw fights. At least that's what I thought. But now we see, Pedro Munoz, who he had such a friendly rapport with, and they were getting along, and they were so complimentary of one another. And so the animosity wasn't there. So instead, now you just had him make a tactical error. You know, he gets a hard shot landed on him, and then the switch goes off, and it turns into just evolves into a brawl that looks like his chin just isn't equipped for. And at this point, you got to think like coaching, man. Coaching. Let's see. We got a question from Jetty in the Bins. Let me make sure I get this right. I love that name, Jetty in the Bins, by the way. If Cody left Team Alpha Male, which camp should he go to? Yes, definitely want to address that. Cody, yeah, he just it's so frustrating to see him, the guy with that level of talent, and especially when he looks so calm and so just kind of at peace with himself leading up to this fight. Like in the lead up to 227, like he was not a happy dude, and it was very clear to everyone that was there. Like he was so bothered by Dillashaw's presence. Dominic Cruz is actually, walking around as an analyst. He's walking around. So it's like all these guys, and Joseph Benavidez, another former Team Alpha Male guy. There were a lot of personalities around him that just seemed to bring something out, like something that just didn't bode well on fight night. So when he clips Dillashaw, he gets bloodthirsty, he goes at him, leaves that chin out, boom, gets caught. So to see him do that against Pedro Munoz, it's like, hey, it's not just the Team Alpha Male thing as far as the drama behind the camps and his emotional investment in that. It's a problem with the way he approaches the fight. Now, as far as Team Alpha Male goes, I think that is a problem. I think that is a huge problem. Like, Team Alpha Male is not doing him any favors at this point. 3 knockout losses in a row, such a promising career. Yeah, it's time to get a fresh set of eyes watching this man's career, because his chin is going, and it's not going to be much of it left if he continues down this path. And it just would be such a shame for a dude who's so talented, who not that long ago styled on the greatest bantamweight of all time. What a sad turn of events. But let's not take anything away from Pedro Munoz. I mean, he did what he was supposed to do. He actually got called out for this matchup. Apparently, Garbrandt's team targeted him as the perfect rebound fight. And man, did he just take that one on the chin and decide to give it right back. Definitely big credit to him. And I like him as an addition to that title picture. Bantamweight is getting really exciting, man. I hope they sort this silliness out with the flyweights being intertwined with TJ and Cejudo. I hope they just let Cejudo do what he does at 125 until they decide what they're going to do with that division, and put Dillashaw in against Moraes, and then we got Aljamain Sterling putting in work on Jamie Rivera not that long ago. I mean, great work on him. He's in that picture. You've got you got Pedro Munoz now. There are some names that make me very excited about what's going on at bantamweight. And as far as Cody Garbrandt goes, it's certainly time to go back to the drawing board. You have to. Now to get to the question I was just asked, I want to see him. I want to see him reach out to like Dean Thomas. That's kind of what I'm thinking. That combination of Dean Thomas and Duke Roufus. I kind of like that because they have a good way of kind of taking what you already do and adding little wrinkles to it and giving you different looks that let you refine that. Like, I don't think we should have Cody Garbrandt going in there and trying to fight like a TJ Dillashaw, or all of a sudden he turned into just some sort of suffocating wrestler. That's not him. That's not him. But I would like to see some sort of a dedication to the defense. I mean, look, he was against the fence against Pedro Munoz, backed against the cage shortly before the finishing sequence. He slipped and rolled out of a couple shots, and it looked so sweet. He rolled out a couple shots, circled out, and regained a little space and reset. It's just that when he reset, he decided to hands down, chin up, let's rock. You need coaching that's going to try to force that habit out of him. Coaching, or if it is that the coaching is going to play into what he does, like to refine that, to make it as least dangerous as possible. My homie Oscar Willis of Mac Life, we were talking about it last night, and he's saying like, yeah, you think about when Holloway brawls, hand is up, and it's everything is really tight, everything is compact, and it's not these winging bombs that leave so much time for that straight shot to come in. I want to see Cody Garbrandt jab. Like, I want to see those little things that will refine his game and allow him to do what he wants to do in a much more safe and effective fashion. So, all right. Let's move on. Jeremy Stephens versus Zabit Magomed Shapirov. Zabit, man, he proved himself worthy, but let's not jump out the window and say that this guy needs to be in a title fight. Let's not do that. Let's just say we need him to develop some more. But the thing is, Zabit, man, it seems like such an interesting character. From my viewpoint, it looked like Zabit just for a while just wasn't even trying. Like that first round, man, he didn't even get out of first gear. He just, he just kind of tossing a shot out here and there. Like he's really going for a kick, maybe going for like a heel sweep or something like that. But for the most part, he was very relaxed, and it worked for him. But then he turned it on a bit in the second round. I think like halfway through the second round, he started turn up the intensity a bit. But Jeremy Stephens, man, he is that dude is game, man. That dude is game, but the dimensions of Zabit, I think, is what really did him in. Because you can come in like that and wing bombs on somebody smaller if you're Jeremy Stephens. Somebody with that long of a reach, with that effective of a kicking arsenal, it's much harder to close that distance and do what you came to do. So so yeah, Jay, the esteemed producer of the Trenches, who also helps run the Sherdog forums, he sent me a question. Asked, like, let me make sure I get the phrasing right, because I know the gist of the question. But it says, has the UFC failed us if they don't make Zabit versus Yair next? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that would be. I mean, that's a fight we've been wanting for quite some time. So, like, let's do it. Let's just do it, man. Let them go. Style wise, that should be very interesting. And I think both guys definitely need a lot of development before we start talking about them as legitimate title challengers. And then also, I think I normally am so against killing off contenders, but I don't think either one of them is a contender just yet. So if you pair them together, you know, I don't think that'll be the first time they ever meet. You pair them together, you see what happens. The winner advances and continues to kind of push himself closer and closer to that, that contendership status. And the other one takes that loss, learns from it, and comes back better. And I guarantee you they will meet again after their first meeting. And I would love to see that first meeting very, very, very soon. One thing too, I don't know if this came across in the broadcast or not. Nevada definitely was very tight with the security this time around. This was the first time that the UFC had been in T-Mobile Arena since the brawl at 229, and there were cops everywhere, commission officials everywhere. And when Zabit and Jeremy, it looked like they had a little animosity between them. If you even want to call it that, it was probably just Jeremy Stephens hyping himself up, and Zabit, being a tough man from a tough region, just doing what he does. They had officials out like ready to break them up. I mean, I know after the bell in the first round, I think it was, they had like a brief shoving match, and after one of the other bells, Stevens is like standing over him yelling or something, and there were definitely some moments there where like you understand, if you are anybody working in T-Mobile Arena, if you are the UFC, if you are the Las Vegas Police Department, if you are the NAC, you're like, oh no, not again. So they're gonna knock that off. They're gonna try to stomp that out. And there was like a squad of cops that surrounded the cage to make sure that things didn't get out of hand, and they were very, very, very watchful of Stevens and Zabit for good reason. As far as what's next for Stevens, I don't know, man. This guy is about as solid of a gatekeeper as you can imagine. I see him just getting back on the horse, man, as soon as he can, and just probably knocking off another potential contender. I don't think he's gonna see anybody in the top 5. He can hope for like a late notice replacement for a high profile fight. But yeah, I think he's settled into gatekeeper status at this point. All right, so definitely have to talk about Misha Serkinov and Johnny Walker. What do we witness? Oh, you know what? Stevens versus Korean Zombie. Jay just made that suggestion. I like it. I don't think Korean Zombie should be fighting for a little bit there. I think we give him another like 6 months or so to recover, but I'm not mad at that matchup at all. That sounds pretty good. That sounds like an appropriate thing for both guys to see if one can maybe sneak their way back into trying to earn their shot up, moving on the ladder. All right, but Misha Serkinov and Johnny Walker, man, like Johnny Walker I I picked against him. And while that may sound ridiculous, I'll explain my reasoning behind it. I picked against him because I don't think we saw it. We haven't seen enough of him. Like, he's such an unproven commodity. He's a guy who, um, yeah, he's had some very impressive performances, but how long did they last? Like, what did we learn about him? I still don't think we know a lot about Johnny Walker now. We know he's this athletic freak. We know he can just destroy you at a moment's notice. Um, but and granted, I haven't gone back and watched his fights in Brazil, like when he lost in Jungle Fight or what's other from Samurai FC. I don't know anything about those fights, so forgive me if that that ignorance is leaving something on the table that I should be talking about. But what we've seen in the UFC, man, he's fought for what, less than, and including, let me double check this because to get the official time on what he did on the, yeah, he went to decision on the Contender Series against a guy who was much more experienced than him. But since he's been in the UFC, he's fought for what, 2.5 minutes, and he's got 3 fantastically dramatic knockout finishes. I mean, you reach a point where some of these guys where you can't, you say you haven't seen enough, but Misha Serkinov is so super legit, and he finished him like it was nothing. It was, you guys catch the Ghostbusters 2 reference, but he's like the buzzing of flies to Vito, like that level of just like just do away with him. That says enough to me. I'd be hard pressed to pick against Johnny Walker outside of anybody in the top 5 at this point. Like, it's that serious. It's that serious what level of destruction this man is capable of. Dana White also said that he wasn't too keen on pushing Johnny Walker too far, too fast. That's a good move. It's a good move. I'm not mad at that at all. But yeah, I'm really curious as to what happens next with him. I feel for Misha Serkinov, man. His wife is battling breast cancer, and pretty emotional build up for him, and having the short notice replacement. Originally, OSP was supposed to be his opponent. And a tough set of circumstances for him. I did see something saying that Johnny Walker was like offering to help Serkinov, help with paying for his, like, some of his wife's treatments and stuff. And if that's the case, man, what a stand-up guy. I mean, Johnny Walker is a definite future star. He's a dude who we should definitely be paying attention to. I think we're going to see some great things for him. All right, so I'm gonna make this quick because I don't want to be here too long because I do have to finish some writing. But Cody Stamann and Alejandro Perez, great fight there. I'm off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember what my scorecard was there. I thoroughly enjoyed that fight. I think they both had some moments there. It was very close. I want to say I gave it to Perez like 29-28. But if you had a 30-27, if you had a 29-28 the other way, like those scorecards could have been all over the place. Every round was so close. Every round was so close. I really can't be too mad about what anybody saw from that fight. I mean, Perez definitely, I think he definitely had the moments. He had those the definitive shots here and there that kind of stick in your mind. And Cody Stamann kind of had these spurts of getting in, getting out, landing his hits, getting out of the way of danger, and kind of nullifying a lot of what Perez could do with the leg kicks. So that definitely was it was an entertaining fight. It was a nightmare to judge. So I didn't envy anybody sitting at the scores table for that one. Jesus Christ, man. All right, Diego Sanchez and Mickey Gall. Wow. Diego Sanchez, man. I picked Gall, but it wasn't because I thought Gall was the better fighter necessarily. It's because I just thought Diego was that shot. I just didn't think his chin would hold up. But it looks like I was wrong. I mean, Mickey Gall, style-wise, is like tailor-made for Diego Sanchez to beat. He's a guy who wants to grapple. He wants to submit. He wants to try to dominate position. And, of course, Diego Sanchez just welcomes that with open arms. But Mickey Gall is also a guy who isn't exactly the most refined of a striker. I know he's been trying to improve that. Certain parts of his striking game look better, but he's still got a long way to go with the hands and feet. If you can't outstrike Diego Sanchez early, if you're that younger guy, that old man's strength going to get on you, man. That old man's strength is going to consume your soul. And Diego turned back the hands of time just a little bit last night. Now long term, this really could be a bad thing for him because he's a very determined man, as we all know. I had a interesting conversation with him at Media Day, and that dude is he ain't right. He's not built like the rest of us. This guy wants to just keep fighting. Like, this is a guy that you're probably going to have to like drag him away from the octagon to keep him from fighting. And a win, when you're winning at this stage of a career where conventional wisdom says you probably should be retiring, you should be thinking about hanging it up. You keep winning, it's like that. Oh, I still got it. Oh, I still got it. And unless the UFC is just content to just find guys who aren't experienced and just throw them in there with Sanchez just to see what happens, unless you're going to do that, you keep winning. You're going to kind of have to keep moving up. And if you keep moving up, you're going to run into killers that are going to be able to outbox you, that are going to be able to handle your aggression on the ground. And they'll do it with much more violence, much more prejudice than you'd expect from the Mickey Galls and the Craig Whites of the world. So long term, this may not have been the best thing for Diego Sanchez, but good moment for him. Definitely enjoyed watching him able to to get that win and enjoy, soak up that moment, enjoy the crowd, and he's a very passionate man. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and just briefly touch on the early prelims to wrap things up. Edmund Shabazian smashed Chris Bird like quickly, 38 seconds for the TKO. Macy Chasen, she annihilated Gina Mazzani first round TKO at a minute and 49 seconds. That was, man, like the patience. Now, granted, it was such a quick finish, but like the patience that she showed and being able to just stay outside and just use her length and get those shots off. That was a great performance. Hannah Cyphers and Polyana Viana, split decision goes in favor of Cyphers. That was a great fight. That was a great way to start the card off. I think off the top of my head, I think I had Cyphers winning that as well. That was a very close fight, as a split decision would indicate. It was a very close fight. Wouldn't be mad if however you scored it. But I think with Viana, it just seemed like game plan wise, it just wasn't the right move for her. She didn't take advantage of her length. Like, Cyphers is really tiny. She's really tiny. She's got short arms, and Viana just let her come in too much. Like, could come in and fight her game too much. I mean, she took some nasty overhands a few times, and Viana was able to get some kicks going, but I think like she just let Cyphers get in way too often. And I think that was what her undoing was, but nevertheless, great fight. Yeah, so this are our takeaways before wrap it up, man. Weird night, definitely very strange night. A lot of action, a lot of good action. I mean, the first three fights, like, wow, like the Fight Pass prelims, just mind-blowingly good fights and good entertainment there. The ESPN prelims, pretty much the same. It was like a lot of entertaining fights. Like, yeah, Zabit and Stevens kind of slowed things down, but that was a good fight, man. That was a really good fight. Main card was action packed too. Aside from the two title fights, where it was like long, methodical, like systematic destructions of someone. Some good stuff there, like really good stuff there, and bizarre with the Lawler Askren thing. Kobe Covington in the crowd, and yeah, this card was a little bit of everything. This was peak MMA. Yeah, man. But here at my experience in Vegas, live for 235 has been a good one. It was a good fight week. It was uneventful. Most of the fighters seem to be in better spirits. It definitely flowed a lot easier than some of the previous fight weeks. Like 232 was just insane, as you can imagine, with the card being moved at the last minute, just like the tension in the air. Remember that first press conference where things got off the rails really quickly, where with the income tax thing and the Swedish journalists getting scolded by Jones and stuff, that they just set a very ugly tone that kind of followed up until the fight night. That was last night, or all week, was much better experience. I think much better experience. In 229, was marred by the brawl and the geopolitics and all that sort of stuff. But we had none of that. We just had contenders fight. The closest we got was Kobe Covington, and that was so ridiculously over the top. Like, I couldn't get mad. So yeah, man, that'll do it for the Walk of Shame. Definitely appreciate everyone who listened, everyone who participated. Shout out to Jay, who once again just volunteered to toss some questions to me, so I don't have to think a whole lot more than what I'm already doing. Trying to get this together. So please like and subscribe, share it with your friends. Check back in, man. Trying to get some regular content going. Just some little things that just kind of break the monotony. I like to talk fights, obviously, and sometimes I talk too much, but hey, this is what it is. This is why I'm talking now. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Twitter at AntWalkerMMA. As far as what I've got coming up, as soon as I press stop broadcast and change the thumbnail on this this video, I will be finishing my good, bad, and ugly column. I actually had a lot done, and then I didn't like it, so I scrapped it. Probably should have saved a draft in case I changed my mind, but whatever. I'm not the smartest guy all the time, but hey, I did it. So that should be live. Hopefully by the time I hit my flight out of Vegas, I hope that should be on the site. James Lynch and I did a post-fight video right after 235, and after that presser wrap. So I've got that. I'm going to chop up a little bit, and I will upload it to the Sherdog.com YouTube page as well. But once again, appreciate everyone who participated. Appreciate everyone who has been following along with my exploits on Sherdog.com, on my Twitter account as well, trying to share this experience of UFC 235 fight week. And until next time, you know what to do. You got to stay beautiful. You got to stay positive. You got to stay incredible. And most of all, you must stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.